Jake Martinez wiped sweat from his forehead as he walked through the thick jungle. The air on Kepler 442b was hot and heavy. His boots sank into the soft ground with each step. Behind him, 3 other Marines followed in a line. Captain Lisa. Grant led the team. She held her rifle ready and watched the trees around them. "How much further?" asked Private Danny Costa. He was the youngest member of their squad. This was his first mission on an alien world. 2 more miles, Captain Grant said. "Stay alert. We don't know what lives in these woods." The team had been walking for 3 hours. Their mission was simple. Check the crash site that satellites had spotted 2 days ago. Take pictures. Collect samples. Report back to base. Nothing exciting was supposed to happen. Jake heard a strange sound ahead. It was like metal scraping against rock. He raised his hand to stop the team. Everyone froze and listened. The sound came again. It was coming from behind a hill covered with purple trees. "That's not natural," whispered Sergeant Pete Walker, the team's tech expert. "Something made that noise." Captain Grant nodded. She pointed to Jake and Danny. "You 2 go left. Pete and I will go right. We'll meet at the top of the hill." Jake and Danny moved through the trees. The purple leaves felt strange when they brushed against Jake's face. They were soft like silk, but cold as ice. The ground started to slope up. Jake could see broken metal pieces scattered between the trees. When they reached the top, Jake's breath caught in his throat. In the valley below was a crashed spaceship, but it was not like any human ship he had ever seen. The hull was black, with silver lines that seemed to glow. The ship was shaped like a giant teardrop about the size of a school bus. One side was completely torn open. "Jesus," Danny whispered. "That's not one of ours." Captain Grant's voice came through their radio. "We see it too, moving in for a closer look. Stay sharp." The 4 Marines came together at the bottom of the hill. Up close, the ship looked even stranger. The metal had a pattern like insect wings. Strange symbols were carved into the hull. Some parts of the ship were still smoking. "How long do you think it's been here?" Danny asked. Pete checked his scanner. "The metal is still warm. Maybe 6 hours, 8 at most." Captain Grant looked worried. "If this thing crashed recently, there might be survivors." Jake walked toward the torn opening in the ship's side. Inside, he could see dim lights still working. "Captain, I'm going in." "Wait," Grant said. "We don't know if it's safe." "Someone might need help," Jake said. He had always been the type to help others before thinking about himself. His mother used to say it would get him in trouble someday. Jake stepped through the opening. The inside of the ship was dark except for small blue lights along the walls. The air smelled sweet, like flowers mixed with metal. Everything was built for someone much taller than humans. The ceiling was at least 10 feet high. He moved deeper into the ship. His flashlight beam showed strange control panels and seats that looked like they were made for someone with long legs and arms. In the back of the ship, he found what looked like a medical bay. On a table in the center of the room lay a creature, unlike anything Jake had ever seen. It looked like a mix between a human and a praying mantis. It had 2 arms and 2 legs like a person, but its skin was green and shiny. Its head was triangular with large black eyes. The creature was about 7 feet tall and wearing some kind of silver suit. The creature was breathing, but barely. A large piece of metal was stuck in its chest. Green blood pooled on the table around it. "Captain," Jake called into his radio. "I found a survivor. It's badly hurt." "On our way," Grant replied. As Jake moved closer, the creature's eyes opened. They were completely black, like looking into deep space. The creature looked at Jake with what seemed like fear at first. Then its expression changed. It lifted one long arm and pointed to a corner of the room. Jake turned his flashlight toward the corner. There, in what looked like a small bed or nest made of soft material, was another creature. This one was much smaller, about the size of a 5-year-old human child. It had the same green skin and triangular head, but its eyes were closed. It was not moving. The larger creature made a sound. It was soft like wind through leaves, but Jake could tell it was trying to communicate. The creature pointed at the small one again, then at Jake. Its black eyes seemed to be pleading. Jake understood. This was a parent trying to save its child. He moved to the corner and carefully picked up the small creature. It was surprisingly light, like holding a sleeping cat. As soon as he touched it, the little one's eyes opened. They were the same deep black as its parents, but somehow they seemed innocent and afraid. The parent creature made that wind-like sound again. This time it sounded almost grateful. It lifted its hand toward Jake. When their skin touched, Jake felt something strange happen in his mind. Pictures flashed behind his eyes. He saw the crashed ship flying through space. He saw the larger creature caring for the smaller one, feeding it, teaching it. He saw love. The parent was dying. Jake could see it in those black eyes. But it was not worried about itself, it was worried about its child. "I'll take care of it," Jake said, even though he knew the creature probably could not understand English. "I promise." The parent creature seemed to relax. Its breathing became slower. The light in its black eyes began to fade. Captain Grant, Pete, and Danny entered the medical bay just as the parent creature took its last breath. "What the hell is that?" Danny asked, staring at the scene. "Aliens," Pete said, scanning the creatures with his equipment. "Real aliens." Captain Grant looked at Jake holding the small creature. "We need to report this immediately. Command needs to know about this." Suddenly, alarms started going off outside the ship. Their radios crackled with static, then cleared. "This is Base Phoenix," came a voice. "Enemy ships detected in your area. You have hostiles incoming. Get out of there now." Through the torn opening in the ship's hull, Jake could see lights in the sky. Red lights moving fast and heading straight for them. "Move! Move! Move!" Captain Grant shouted. As they ran from the ship, Jake held the alien child tight against his chest. The little creature seemed to sense danger. It wrapped its thin arms around Jake's neck and held on. Laser blasts started hitting the ground around them. Trees exploded into flames. The smell of burning wood and metal filled the air. "This way," Pete yelled, pointing toward a rocky area where they could take cover. More laser blasts came down from the sky. One hit right where Jake had been standing a second before. He dove behind a large rock, protecting the alien child with his body. The attack lasted for 10 minutes. When it finally stopped, smoke and fire covered the jungle around them. "Is everyone okay?" Captain Grant called out. "Here," Jake replied. The alien child in his arms was trembling but unharmed. "What do we do about the kid?" Danny asked. Jake looked down at the small creature. Its black eyes stared back at him with complete trust. In that moment, Jake knew his life had changed forever. This little being was depending on him now. "We take it home," he said. The medical bay at Forward Operating Base Phoenix was quiet except for the soft beeping of machines. Jake sat in a chair next to a bed where the alien child lay sleeping. 3 days had passed since they brought it back from the crash site. The little creature had not eaten anything during that time. Dr. Amy Clark walked into the room carrying a tablet computer. She was the base's xenobiologist, which meant she studied alien life forms. So far, she had never had a real alien to study. "How is our patient doing?" she asked Jake. "Still not eating," Jake replied. He looked tired. He had barely left the alien child's side since they arrived at the base. Dr. Clark frowned. "That's not good. It needs food to survive. Have you tried the different things I prepared?" Jake nodded. "I offered everything you made. It just looks at the food, then looks at me, then turns away." The alien child was about 3 feet tall when standing. Its skin was light green and smooth, like a frog's. Its head was shaped like a triangle with large black eyes that seemed to see everything. It had thin arms and legs and 4 fingers on each hand. Dr. Clark had said it was probably very young for its species. "Maybe it doesn't trust us," Dr. Clark said. "In the wild, young animals often only take food from their parents." "But its parent is dead," Jake said sadly. "What are we supposed to do?" Before Dr. Clark could answer, the alien child's eyes opened. It looked around the room until it saw Jake, then made a soft chirping sound. When Dr. Clark moved closer to the bed, the child moved away from her and reached toward Jake. "It definitely prefers you," Dr. Clark said. "There must be a reason," For that, Jake stood up and sat on the edge of the bed. The alien child immediately moved closer to him. It put its small hand on Jake's arm and looked up at his face. For a moment, Jake felt something strange in his mind again. Pictures flashed behind his eyes, just like when he had touched the parent creature. He saw himself in the crashed ship picking up the child. He saw himself protecting it during the attack. He saw himself sitting by the bed for 3 days. But he was seeing these memories from the child's point of view. "Whoa," Jake said softly. "What happened?" Dr. Clark asked. I think it just showed me some memories." "It's memories." Dr. Clark's eyes went wide. "Telepathy? It can share thoughts?" "Maybe," Jake said. "It's hard to explain." The alien child made the chirping sound again. This time, Jake felt something different in his mind. Not pictures, but a feeling. The child was hungry, but it was also afraid. It did not want to eat. The strange food from strange people. It only felt safe with Jake. "You're scared," Jake said to the child. "You don't know what this food is." He picked up one of the food samples Dr. Clark had prepared. It looked like green soup. Jake dipped his finger in it and tasted it. It was not bad, just different. Kind of like vegetable soup, but sweeter. "See?" Jake said to the child. "It's okay, it won't hurt you." The alien child watched Jake carefully. When he offered the soup again, the child took the spoon with its thin fingers and tried a small sip. Its black eyes seemed to light up. It drank the rest of the soup quickly. "Amazing," Dr. Clark said. "It needed to see that you trusted the food first." Over the next few hours, the alien child ate several more bowls of food. It also drank water and seemed to get stronger. Dr. Clark ran tests on it while Jake stayed nearby. She found that the child was very healthy and very intelligent. "Its brain activity is off the charts," Dr. Clark told Jake. "This species must be incredibly smart." "What should we call it?" Jake asked. "It needs a name." Jake looked at the child, who was now sitting up in bed and looking around the room with curiosity. "How about Pip? It's small and makes those little chirping sounds." As soon as Jake said the name Pip, the child turned and looked right at him. It made a happy chirping sound and seemed to smile, though its face was different from a human's. "I think it likes that name," Dr. Clark said. Colonel Ryan Torres entered the medical bay. He was the commander of the base and looked very serious all the time. Behind him walked Captain Grant and Pete. "Doctor, how is our guest doing?" the colonel asked. "Much better now," Dr. Clark said. "It's eating and seems healthy, but there's something interesting. It has formed some kind of bond with Sergeant Martinez." "What kind of bond?" Colonel Torres asked. "The child only feels safe with Jake," Dr. Doe Clark explained. "It won't eat unless he's nearby. It seems to communicate with him telepathically. And watch this." Dr. Clark walked to the other side of the room. "Pip, can you come here?" The alien child looked at her but did not move. "Pip, come here, buddy," Jake said from across the room. Pip immediately got up and walked over to Jake. It stayed close to his side and held onto his hand. "Remarkable," Colonel Torres said. "It's like a baby duck that thinks Jake is its mother." "What are we going to do with it?" Captain Grant asked. Colonel Torres thought for a moment. "We'll keep it here for now. Dr. Clark will continue studying it. Sergeant Martinez, I'm assigning you to help take care of it. You seem to be the only one it trusts." Jake nodded. "Yes, sir." Over the next week, Jake spent most of his time with Pip. The alien child was incredibly curious about everything. It watched Jake shave in the morning. It followed him to the mess hall for meals. It even tried to copy the way Jake walked and held his rifle. Pip was also very smart. Dr. Clark showed it pictures of different objects, and Pip learned their names. In English within hours. It could point to a chair and say chair in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. It learned water and food and Jake and friend. But the most amazing thing was how Pip seemed to sense danger. One morning, Jake was cleaning his rifle, when Pip suddenly became very agitated. The child grabbed Jake's arm and pulled him toward the door, making worried, chirping sounds. "What's wrong, Pip?" Jake asked. Before Pip could respond, alarms started going off throughout the base. A voice came over the speakers. Incoming missile attack. All personnel to bunkers. This is not a drill. Jake grabbed Pip and ran toward the nearest bunker. As they ran, he wondered how Pip had known about the attack before the base's sensors detected it. In the bunker, Pip stayed close to Jake while explosions shook the ground above them. Other soldiers looked at the alien child with curiosity and some fear. They had heard about it, but most had never seen it up close. "Is that the alien kid?" asked a young soldier named Tony. "Yeah," Jake said. "Its name is Pip." Pip looked at Tony and made a soft chirping sound. It seemed to be saying hello. "It's smaller than I thought," Tony said. "Looks harmless." "It is harmless," Jake said. "It's just a kid who lost its parent." After the attack ended, everyone returned to their duties, but Jake noticed that several soldiers kept looking at Pip with interest instead of fear. The alien child was starting to be accepted as part of the base. That night, Jake was lying on his bunk when Pip climbed up and curled up next to him like a cat. The child's breathing was slow and peaceful. Jake felt that strange sensation in his mind again. This time he saw images of Pip's homeworld, a place with purple skies and silver cities. He saw other creatures like Pip, living together in harmony. Then he saw something else. Large ships in space, moving toward Earth. Ships that looked like the one that had crashed in the jungle. Jake sat up quickly. "Pip, what did you just show me?" But Pip was fast asleep, making tiny chirping sounds like it was having happy dreams. Jake lay back down, but he could not sleep. If those images were real, if Pip's people were coming to Earth, what would happen when they arrived? Would they be friendly? Would they want Pip back? And most importantly, would they blame humans for what happened to Pip's parent? Jake looked down at the small alien child sleeping peacefully beside him. In just 1 week, Pip had become like family to him. He would do anything to protect the little creature. He just hoped he would not have to. The alarm woke Jake from a deep sleep. Red lights flashed in his room as the base's warning system blared. Pip jumped up from where it had been sleeping next to Jake's bed. The alien child looked scared and confused. "Attention all personnel," came a voice over the speakers. "Multiple alien vessels detected approaching the system. This is not a drill. Report to battle stations immediately." Jake's heart pounded as he grabbed his uniform. The ships from Pip's vision were real, and they were here. "It's okay, Pip," Jake said, trying to stay calm for the child's sake. "Everything will be fine." But Pip was acting strangely. The alien child stood very still with its black eyes closed. It seemed to be listening to something Jake could not hear. Then Pip's eyes snapped open and it grabbed Jake's hand. Images flashed in Jake's mind again. He saw massive ships shaped like teardrops, just like the crashed vessel. He saw tall insect-like creatures wearing silver armor. And he felt their emotions: anger, grief, and determination. "They're looking for you, aren't they?" Jake asked. Pip nodded and made worried chirping sounds. Jake and Pip hurried to the command center. Colonel Torres was standing in front of a large screen that showed space around their planet. Dozens of alien ships hung in the darkness like silver stars. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "How many are there?" Captain Grant asked. 57 ships, answered Lieutenant Ben Watson, the communications officer. "The largest one is over 2 miles long." Dr. Clark stood next to the colonel, looking excited and nervous. "This is incredible. First contact with an alien civilization." "They're not trying to talk to us," Colonel Torres said grimly. "They've been out there for 6 hours, no communication attempts." Suddenly, the radio crackled with static. Then a voice came through, deep, strange, and clearly not human. "Humans of the third planet," the voice said in perfect English. "We are the Zafari Empire. You have taken something that belongs to us. Return what was stolen, and no harm will come to your world." Everyone in the command center looked at Pip. The alien child moved closer to Jake and held his hand tightly. "They mean Pip," Jake said quietly. Colonel Torres picked up the radio microphone. "This is Colonel Torres of the Human Colonial Forces. We have not stolen anything. We rescued a survivor from a crashed ship." There was a long pause. Then the voice came, back colder than before. "The heir to the Zafari throne was being transported when your kind interfered. If the child lives, bring it to us. If the child is dead, then your world will pay the price." Jake felt his blood turn to ice. Pip was not just any alien child. It was royalty, and its people thought humans had killed its parent and kidnapped it. "We need to show them that Pip is alive and well," Dr. Clark said. "And then what?" Captain Grant asked. "Just hand it over?" Jake looked down at Pip. The child was trembling with fear, but it was trying to be brave. Jake realized that Pip understood every word that was being said. "I'll take Pip to them," Jake said. "Absolutely not," Colonel Torres replied. "We don't know if they can be trusted." "They're scared," Jake said. "Their child is missing. If someone took my kid, I'd be angry too. But if I saw that my child was safe and happy, I'd listen to reason." Lieutenant Watson looked up from his station. "Sir, they're sending down a shuttle. It's heading for the main landing pad." "All right," Colonel Torres said. "We'll meet with them. But we do this carefully. Full security detail." An hour later, Jake stood on the landing pad with Pip at his side. The alien child had insisted on wearing a small uniform that Dr. Clark had made for it. Pip wanted to look proper for meeting its own people. Behind them stood Colonel Torres, Dr. Clark, Captain Grant, and 20 armed Marines. Everyone was nervous, but Jake tried to stay calm for Pip's sake. The alien shuttle was beautiful. It landed, without making any sound, like a feather touching the ground. The metal was the same black with silver lines that Jake had seen on the crashed ship. A door opened on the side of the shuttle, and 3 figures walked out. Jake had to force himself, not to step backwards. The aliens were much larger than he had expected. They stood nearly 8 feet tall and looked like a mix between humans and praying mantises. Their skin was darker green than Pip's, and they wore elaborate silver armor. The one in front had gold decorations on its armor and moved with the confidence of a leader. But it was their eyes that made Jake's heart race. Unlike Pip's innocent black eyes, these aliens had eyes that looked ancient and dangerous. Eyes that had seen war and death. The lead alien stepped forward and spoke in that same deep voice they had heard on the radio. "I am Queen Zarathan of the Zephyri Empire," she said. "I have come for my child." Jake felt Pip squeeze his hand. The little alien was shaking but trying to be brave. "Your Majesty," Colonel Torres said, stepping forward. "We are honored to meet you. We want to return your child safely." Queen Zarathan's large black eyes looked at Colonel Torres, then moved to scan the group of humans. When her gaze fell on Jake and Pip, she stopped. She stared at them for a long moment. "You," she said, pointing at Jake. "You are the one who has been caring for my offspring." "Yes, ma'am," Jake said. "I found Pip, your child, when its parent was dying. I've been taking care of it ever since." Queen Zarathan moved closer. She was so tall that Jake had to tilt his head back to look at her face. Up close, he could see that her armor was covered with scratches and dents. This was a warrior who had seen many battles. "Show me," she commanded. Jake was confused. "Show you what?" "Show me how you have treated my child." Jake looked down at Pip, who nodded encouragingly. "Well, I made sure it ate every day. I taught it some English words. I protected it during attacks on our base. I tried to be a good friend." As Jake spoke, Queen Zarathan knelt down so she was closer to Pip's height. She said something in the Zafari language, a series of clicks and musical sounds. Pip responded in the same language, talking quickly and excitedly. Jake could not understand the words, but he felt emotions through his connection with Pip. The child was telling its mother about everything that had happened, about the crash, about Jake saving it, about learning English, about feeling safe and loved. Queen Zarathan listened to her child for several minutes. As Pip talked, the Queen's expression slowly changed. The anger in her eyes began to fade, replaced by something that looked like surprise and curiosity. When Pip finished speaking, Queen Zarathan stood up and looked at Jake again. My child says you protected it with your own body during an attack, she said. Yes, ma'am, Jake replied. I couldn't let anything happen to Pip. And you have asked for nothing in return? Nothing, Jake said. I just wanted to help. Queen Zarathan was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that surprised everyone. In all my years as queen, I have never heard of such behavior. From an alien species. Most would have used my child as a bargaining tool or weapon, but you simply protected it because it needed protection. Dr. Clark stepped forward nervously. Your Majesty, we have studied your child's biology to make sure it stayed healthy. We meant no disrespect. You have treated my offspring better than some of my own people would have, Queen Zarathan said. This is unexpected. Pip tugged on Jake's hand and made soft chirping sounds. Jake felt a familiar sensation as images flashed in his mind. Pip was showing him something important. Pip wants to know if it can stay with both of us, Jake said. It doesn't want to choose between its mother and me. Queen Zarathan's eyes widened with surprise. The child has bonded with you telepathically? I think so, Jake said. We can share thoughts and feelings sometimes. That is impossible, said Dao, one of the other Zephyri. The royal bloodline only bonds with other Zephyri. But Queen Zarathan held up her hand for silence. She looked at Jake with new interest. Human, she said, what you have accomplished should not be possible. My child has formed a sacred bond with you, something that has never happened with an alien before. Jake did not know what to say. He just held Pip's hand and tried to show the child that everything would be okay. I have a proposal, Queen Zarathan said finally. You will come with us to our empire as my child's guardian and as an ambassador for your species. In return, we will offer your people protection and friendship. Colonel Torres looked shocked. Your Majesty, that's very generous, but we couldn't ask Sergeant Martinez to— I'll do it, Jake said without hesitation. Everyone stared at him. Even Pip looked surprised. Jake, you don't have to do this, Captain Grant said. Yes, I do, Jake replied, looking down at Pip. This little guy has become family to me. If this is what's best for both our peoples, then I'm in. Queen Zarathan nodded with approval. You continue to surprise me, human. Very well. We will leave in 3 days. That will give you time to prepare and say goodbye to your people. As the Zephyri prepared to return to their shuttle, Pip ran to its mother and hugged her leg. Queen Zarathan gently touched her child's head with one of her long hands. Then Pip ran back to Jake and hugged him too. Looks like we're going on an adventure, buddy, Jake said softly. As he watched the Zephyri shuttle fly back to their fleet, Jake realized his life was about to change, in ways he could never have imagined. But as long as Pip was happy and safe, he was ready for whatever came next. 3 days later, Jake stood in the cargo bay of Queen Zarathan's flagship. The ship was called the Silent Wing, and was the largest vessel he had ever been inside. The walls were covered with strange symbols that seemed to glow softly in the dim light. Pip walked beside him, looking excited to be home among its own people. The child had grown taller in just the past few days and was speaking more Zephyri words mixed with English. Jake nervous? Pip asked, using its wind chime voice. A little, Jake admitted. This is all very new to me. 2 Zephyri guards led them through long hallways toward the center of the ship. Jake tried not to stare, but everything was amazing. The technology was far beyond anything humans had built. Lights that worked without power sources. Doors that opened just by thinking about them. And the Zephyri themselves were incredible to watch. They moved like dancers, even though they were 8 feet tall and covered in armor. They arrived at a large room with high ceilings and walls covered in silver panels. Queen Zarathan stood in the center wearing ceremonial armor that was more elaborate than what Jake had seen before. Around her stood dozens of other Zephyri, all watching Jake, with curious black eyes. Welcome to the council chamber, Queen Zarathan said. Today we will determine if you are worthy to be my child's guardian. Jake's stomach tightened with worry. I thought that was already decided. Not yet, the Queen said. Caring for a royal child is the highest honor in our society. You must prove that you are capable through the Guardian's trial. An older Zephyri stepped forward. His armor was decorated with blue stones, and he carried a staff with strange carvings. "I am High Counselor Vex," he said in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "I do not believe an alien can complete the trials. No human has the strength or wisdom to protect our future ruler." Jake felt Pip move closer to his side. The child was worried, and Jake could sense its emotions through their bond. "What exactly are these trials?" Jake asked. Queen Zarathan gestured to the walls around them. The silver panels began to glow and change, showing images of different challenges. "3 tests," she said. "First, you must prove your physical strength by defeating one of our warriors in combat. Second, you must show your intelligence by solving the maze of echoes. Third, and most important, you must demonstrate your willingness to sacrifice for my child." "And if I fail?" Jake asked. High Counselor Vex smiled in a way that was not friendly. "Then you will be sent back to your world and my child will be raised by proper Zephyri guardians." Jake looked down at Pip. The little alien was trying to be brave, but Jake could feel how scared it was. The idea of being separated from Jake terrified Pip more than anything. "I'll do it," Jake said firmly. Queen Zarathan nodded. "Very well. The trials begin now." The first test took place in a large arena. Jake was given basic armor that fit his smaller human body, along with a weapon that looked like a cross between a sword and a spear. His opponent was a Zephyri warrior named Ket, who was known for never losing a fight. Ket stood nearly 9 feet tall and carried weapons in all 4 hands. Yes, 4 hands. Jake had learned that adult Zephyri could grow extra arms when they needed them for combat. "This will be quick," Ket said as they faced each other in the center of the arena. Jake had been a Marine for 8 years and had trained in hand-to-hand combat, but he had never fought anything like Ket. The Zephyri warrior moved like lightning, attacking from 4 different angles at once. Jake dodged the first strike and barely blocked the second. The third weapon caught him in the shoulder, cutting through his armor. Pain shot down his arm, but he forced himself to keep moving. In the stands around the arena, hundreds of Zephyri watched the fight. Jake could see Pip sitting next to Queen Zarathan, its black eyes wide with worry. Jake realized he could not win by trying to match Ket's strength or speed. He had to be smarter. He remembered something his old drill sergeant had taught him. When fighting someone bigger, make them use their size against themselves. Jake pretended to stumble and fall. When Ket leaped forward for the finishing blow, Jake rolled aside and swept his weapon at the warrior's legs. Ket crashed to the ground with a sound like metal hitting stone. Before Ket could get up, Jake pointed his weapon at the warrior's throat. "I yield," Ket said, sounding surprised and impressed. "Well fought, human." The crowd of Zephyri made clicking sounds that Jake realized was applause. In the stands, Pip was jumping up and down with excitement. "The first trial is complete," Queen Zarathan announced. "Jake Martinez has proven his physical capability." The second trial was even harder. The maze of echoes was a massive puzzle built into the ship's computer systems. Jake had to navigate through a virtual maze that changed every time he made a move. The goal was to reach the center where a hologram of Pip was waiting for rescue. But this was not just about finding the right path. The maze tested Jake's ability to think under pressure. Every wrong turn triggered traps, walls of fire, floods of water, attacks by virtual monsters. And the maze learned from his mistakes, making each attempt harder than the last. Jake failed the first 3 times. Each failure meant starting over from the beginning. High Counselor Vex watched with satisfaction, clearly expecting Jake to give up. But Jake did not give up. On the 4th attempt, he stopped trying to find the fastest path to the center. Instead, he paid attention to the patterns and how the maze changed. He realized that the maze was not just random, it was designed to teach patience and careful observation. On the 5th attempt, Jake moved slowly and carefully. He studied each section before moving forward. When he encountered traps, he found ways around them instead of trying to fight through them. It took twice as long as his previous attempts, but he finally reached the center and rescued the holographic Pip. "The second trial is complete," Queen Zarathan said. "Jake Martinez has proven his intelligence and patience." High Counselor Vex looked unhappy. "One trial remains, the most important one." The third trial took place in a simulation chamber that felt completely real. Jake found himself in a recreation of the crashed ship where he had first met Pip. But this time, the scenario was different. The simulation Pip was trapped under a piece of heavy metal debris. Jake could hear the child crying for help. But between Jake and Pip were 3 different paths. The first path was safe but long. Following it would take 10 minutes, but there was no danger. The second path was faster but dangerous. Jake would have to cross an area that was on fire. He might get burned, but he could reach Pip in 5 minutes. The third path was the most direct but looked almost impossible. Jake would have to climb through a section where the ship's hull was collapsing. If he was not careful, he would be crushed. But he could reach Pip in just 2 minutes. As Jake considered his options, he heard a new sound. The ship's power core was going critical. A voice announced that the ship would explode in exactly 4 minutes. Jake's heart raced. If he took the safe path, both he and Pip would die in the explosion. The dangerous path might work, but there was a good chance he would be hurt too badly to help Pip escape. The impossible path was his only real choice. Without hesitation, Jake chose the collapsing section. Metal beams fell all around him as he climbed through the wreckage. A piece of debris hit his leg and he felt bones break. Another piece struck his back, sending waves of pain through his body. But Jake kept going. When he reached Pip, he used all his remaining strength to lift the metal debris. The simulation was so real that Jake felt every bit of pain and exhaustion. "Jake!" the simulation Pip cried as he pulled it free. Jake picked up the child and started running toward the exit. His broken leg made every step agony, but he did not slow down. Behind them, the ship began to collapse completely. They reached the exit with only seconds to spare. As they escaped, the simulation ship exploded in a ball of fire. Jake collapsed, on the ground, still holding Pip tight against his chest. Even though he knew it was just a simulation, his body shook from the effort and pain. "The third trial is complete," Queen Zarathan's voice echoed around them. The simulation faded away and Jake found himself back in the council chamber. His body was not really injured, but he felt exhausted from the experience. "You chose to risk certain death to save my child 2 minutes faster," Queen Zarathan said. "Why?" Jake looked up at her from where he sat on the floor, still catching his breath. "Because every second counts when someone you love is in danger. I would rather die trying to save Pip quickly than play it safe and lose it." Queen Zarathan was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to High Counselor Vex. "What is your judgment?" she asked. Vex looked uncomfortable. The human succeeded at all 3 trials. His methods were unorthodox, but effective. "And," the Queen pressed, "and he has shown the qualities we require in a guardian: strength, intelligence, and most importantly, the willingness to sacrifice everything for the child's welfare." Queen Zarathan nodded. "Then it is decided." She walked over to where Jake was still sitting on the floor and knelt down beside him. In her hands she held a small silver pendant shaped like a wing. "Jake Martinez," she said formally, "I name you Keeper of the Royal Bond. You are the first alien to receive this honor in the history of our empire." She placed the pendant around Jake's neck. As soon as it touched his skin, Jake felt a warm sensation spread through. 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the Silent Wing as it approached the Zafari homeworld. Through the massive windows, he could see a planet unlike anything he had ever imagined. Zafara was covered in silver cities that sparkled like jewels against purple seas. Crystal towers reached into the sky, connected by bridges that seemed to float in the air. Ships moved between the cities like schools of metal fish, their hulls reflecting the light of 3 different suns. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Pip said beside him. Jake was amazed at how much Pip had changed in just 6 months. The young Zafari now stood almost 5 feet tall and spoke perfect English mixed with its native language. Its skin had darkened to a deeper green, and its movements had become more graceful and confident. "It's incredible," Jake said. "I never imagined anything like this." "Wait until you see the royal palace," Pip said excitedly. "Mother says you'll have your own wing with rooms designed for humans." Jake smiled. Over the past months, he had learned to think of Queen Zarathan as family too. She had been patient with his questions about Zephyri culture, and had treated him like a trusted advisor rather than just a guardian. The door to the observation deck opened, and Queen Zarathan entered. She now wore lighter armor decorated with symbols that Jake had learned represented peace and diplomacy. "We will arrive in 2 hours," she said. "Are you ready to meet the High Council?" Jake straightened his new uniform. It was similar to his marine dress blues but modified with Zephyri symbols and made from materials that felt like silk, but were stronger than steel. "As ready as I'll ever be," Jake said. "Do not worry," Queen Zarathan said. "The Council is eager to meet the human who has proven that your species can be trusted. Your actions have already changed how many Zephyri view humanity." Through his bond with Pip, Jake had learned much about Zephyri society over the past months. They were an ancient race that had encountered dozens of other alien species. Most of those encounters had ended in war or betrayal. The Zephyri had become suspicious of all aliens as a result. But Jake's willingness to sacrifice himself for Pip had impressed even the most suspicious members of their government. Word had spread throughout the Empire about the human who had earned the title of Keeper of the Royal Bond. "Jake," Queen Zarathan said, "there is something I must tell you before we land. The High Council has made a decision about Earth." Jake felt his heart skip a beat. "What kind of decision?" "They want to offer humanity a formal alliance," she said. "Full membership in the Zephyri Empire, with all the benefits that brings." "What benefits?" Jake asked. Pip bounced excitedly. "Protection from bad aliens and technology and trade agreements and peace," Queen Zarathan said simply. "The galaxy is a dangerous place, Jake. There are species out there that would destroy humanity without a second thought. But under our protection, Earth would be safe." Jake thought about his home world, about Captain Grant and Dr. Clark and all the other humans who were probably wondering what had happened to him. What would humanity have to give in return? He asked. "Nothing more than friendship," Queen Zarathan said, "though we would hope that other humans might serve as ambassadors, as you have done." 2 hours later, Jake walked through the streets of the Zephyri capital city with Pip and Queen Zarathan. Thousands of Zephyri lined the streets to see them. Jake was amazed to realize that they were not just looking at their queen. Many were, staring at him with curiosity and respect. "They've heard stories about you," Pip explained. "About how you passed the Guardian's trials. Some of them think you might be the start of a new age of cooperation between species." The royal palace was even more magnificent than Jake had imagined. It was built from a white crystal that seemed to glow with its own light. Gardens filled with alien plants surrounded the building, and water features made music as they flowed through carved channels. Inside, the High Council chamber was enormous. 50 of the most important Zephyri in the Empire sat in a circle, with Queen Zarathan's throne at the center. Jake was given a special seat next to Pip, marking his status as part of the royal family. High Counselor Vex stood to address the assembly. Over the past months, he had become one of Jake's strongest supporters after seeing how dedicated Jake was to Pip's welfare. "Fellow counselors," Vex said, "6 months ago, we nearly went to war with humanity over a misunderstanding. Today we gather to discuss making them our allies." An elderly Zephyri named Counselor Thex raised her hand. "The human has proven himself to be honorable. But can we trust the entire species based on one individual?" Jake stood up. Queen Zarathan had told him he was allowed to speak to the council, but his heart was pounding as he looked at the 50 pairs of ancient black eyes staring at him. "Counselor Thex," Jake said, "I understand your concern. Humans are not perfect. We make mistakes, we fight among ourselves sometimes, and we don't always make the right choices." Several counselors made clicking sounds that Jake had learned meant agreement. "But," Jake continued, "we also have something special. When we see someone who needs help, even if they're completely different from us, many humans will risk everything to help them. I'm not unique among my people. There are millions of humans who would have done exactly what I did for Pip." Pip stood up beside Jake. "May I speak?" the young Zephyri asked. Queen Zarathan nodded permission. Honored counselors, Pip said in formal Zafari, then switched to English so Jake could understand. Jake has taught me that being different doesn't mean being enemies. He has shown me that courage and kindness exist in all intelligent beings. If we judge all humans by his example, then we will find good friends among the stars. Another counselor named Kex spoke up. But what guarantee do we have that humanity will honor an alliance? Jake thought for a moment. The same guarantee you have that I'll continue to protect Pip. My word, and the knowledge that breaking it would hurt people I care about. He looked around the chamber. 6 months ago, you didn't know if you could trust me. Now Pip is healthier and happier than ever, and I've learned more about honor and duty from your people than I ever knew existed. Trust isn't something you can guarantee. It's something you build one choice at a time. The council deliberated for hours while Jake, Pip, and Queen Zarathan waited in a side chamber. Finally, they were called back in. High Counselor Vex stood, with a formal document in his hands. The High Council has reached a decision. By a vote of 47-3, we offer humanity full alliance status with the Zafari Empire. Jake felt relief wash over him. Earth would be safe. However, Vex continued, there are conditions. Jake Martinez must continue as our primary ambassador to humanity, and we require that at least 12 other humans come to serve as cultural liaisons throughout our empire. I think that can be arranged, Jake said, thinking of volunteers like Dr. Clark and Captain Grant who would jump at the chance for such an assignment. 1 year later, Jake stood in the same observation deck where he had first seen Zafara. But this time, he was looking at Earth as the silent wing approached his home world. Pip, now almost 6 feet tall and wearing junior diplomatic robes, stood beside him. The young Zephyri had become not just Jake's ward, but his partner in building the Human Zafari Alliance. Nervous about going home? Pip asked. A little, Jake admitted. Everything's changed so much. And it had. Earth now had Zafari technology. Clean energy, faster than light communication, and medical advances that had eliminated most diseases. Human colonies on other worlds were protected by Zafari patrol ships. Trade between the species was making both civilizations richer and more diverse. Most importantly, humanity was no longer alone in the galaxy. They had found not just allies, but friends among the stars. Jake, Pip said, do you ever regret your choice, leaving your old life behind? Jake thought about it. His life as a simple Marine seemed like a lifetime ago. Now he was Ambassador Martinez, one of the most important diplomats in 2 star systems. He had responsibilities he never could have imagined. But as he looked at Pip, brilliant, kind, and growing into a leader who would someday rule the Zafari Empire with wisdom and compassion, Jake knew his answer. Never, he said. Some choices change everything, but that doesn't mean they're wrong. Protecting you was the right thing to do. Everything good that came after was just a bonus. Pip's black eyes sparkled with amusement. Just a bonus? Jake, you helped create an alliance between 2 species. You've prevented wars and saved millions of lives. You've shown the galaxy that different peoples can work together. All I did was take care of a scared kid who needed help, Jake said with a smile. Exactly, Pip said. And that's what makes humans special. You don't need a big reason to do the right thing, you just do it. As their ship entered Earth's atmosphere, Jake could see the cities below had changed. Zafari architectural influences blended with human designs, creating something entirely new and beautiful. Ships from both species moved through the sky together, carrying cargo and passengers between worlds. At the spaceport, Jake could see crowds of humans and Zephyri waiting to welcome them home. Dr. Clark was there, now wearing the robes of a xenobiological advisor. Captain Grant stood nearby in the uniform of the newly formed Human Zafari Joint Defense Force. Ready to face your adoring public? Pip teased. Jake straightened his ambassadors.